Hi everybody and welcome to this week's video. My name's Lynda Gaiao. The background frequency that has come into activation for this week is trait 6, which is friction. Now, one of the analogies I've heard used before for this particular trait is when you take a match and you take the paper that's on the side of the matchbox or at the bottom, and you draw the match along that paper, you're essentially creating friction as you do that. And it is the friction between the two surfaces that ignites the flame, that creates that heat. And this is essentially the underlying principle of how this particular trait works. So it is about two people, two parties coming together. And when those parties come together, there is this friction that, when it's correct, creates this heat and this ability to have intimacy. Now, the intimacy is really designed for two things to come together for some type of creative potential, for something new to emerge. So when you take one and another one, you create a third element, something really exciting and new that wasn't there before and could only come together when these two people come together. So it's a type of intimacy and a type of bonding that has this creative potential. Now, what we need to understand is that intimacy is a selective process, i.e. not everybody is for you, nor is everybody that you're going to come into contact with the correct or the healthiest people to have intimacy with. And so there's the difference here is, that friction is either going to create some type of conflict, or the friction is going to lead to some kind of intimacy that has this creative potential. The trait number 6 is in the emotional intelligence, and it is part of the source of all of the emotional waves that come out of this particular function. Anything that is emotional moves in a wave, i.e. it goes up and down from hope to pain, and time is needed. Whenever we have anything to do with the emotional function in the system, there is this element of waiting over time to gain clarity. So when we initially connect with somebody, we won't really know if that friction is for us or not unless we wait for time. And over time, we are able to establish whether, yes, this is somebody to bond with, this is somebody to create intimacy with, this is somebody where a creative potential can come out of, or not. So there's definitely this openness or this closedness to intimacy. And there is this selectivity about who you let in and who you don't. And that's really important, because if every time we felt this friction or this heat and we jumped into intimacy with every single person that we felt that with, we would end up connecting with and being with a lot of people that are actually not there for us. When most of us think about conflict or even friction, we may have a negative association or a negative connotation with that. Yet friction and to some degree conflict can actually be things that create a lot of growth for us. And knowing what friction and what conflict to engage with is really important. Instead of just running away from it or doing whatever you need to do to people please whoever's around you so that that friction or conflict goes away, kind of negates the possibility of us finding growth or finding growth or helping us to connect into that creative potential. Because when two people who have this friction come together and they are correct for each other, there is this wonderful possibility that emerges with that bonding, with that intimacy, with that creativity and that growth. When we're thinking about this from a business perspective, having somebody with trait 6 in your team, it's really good to put these people in an HR position, because they are going to be able to be really selective and establish exactly who should join the team, who should come into the team, who the rest of the team should create more bonding or more intimacy with. They can be part of the reviewing or the selection process with new candidates to ensure that those people are actually the right people to join the team. They also really help us to work with this friction energy to bring forward that creative potential. So when you're feeling like things have stagnated a bit or nothing new has emerged and you are needing some new kind of energy, having this friction energy around when it's correct and healthy can really bring out this creative potential and this growth within your team and within new projects that your team is working on. So what I'd encourage you to pay attention to as you're moving forward in this week is what conflict is showing up in your environment, what friction is showing up in your environment, and how do you deal with that? Do you run away from it? Do you people please as a result of it? Or are you able to sit with it and wait out to see if stepping into something more can bring that growth or that creative potential? This week is also a great time for you to have a look at the boundaries that you have in place. Boundaries are a form of keeping health in our environment and health in our relationships, and establishing healthy boundaries and having that selectivity about who you let into your personal space and who you don't is really important. And with this friction energy around this week, it will be a great time for you to reevaluate your selection process or how you've established those boundaries or not, to determine whether you need to refresh those boundaries, put new ones in place, and potentially even shift people out of that bonding connection with you, out of that intimacy, to more of a distant connection, because you may find that some of the bonding that you've done in the past is not healthy or correct for you. Emotional openness, authenticity, and vulnerability are not things that we can force. And through this particular trait, we are really able to reach a capacity of emotional intelligence. And so just pay attention this week to what is showing up for you in terms of emotional intelligence in your environment. The fear associated with trait 6 is the fear of intimacy. And so really paying attention to, do you have a fear of intimacy, or are you jumping into every single connection that you have with someone into a deep level of intimacy when that is not correct either? So, we can have this tendency to be this running away from or jumping into when we really needed to have more selectivity. And so just paying attention to see how this shows up for you this week. I'd be interested to hear if you have any stories to share around this energy of friction and what new growth and potential, creative potential, emerged out of this week for you. Pop any of your comments below and I'd love to see what shows up for you. Each week I release a new video as the background frequency changes. So if you want to stay updated with when that happens and what trait comes into activation, then just hit the subscribe button and you'll receive a notification each week when that happens. Until next week, I hope you have an awesome time playing with this intimacy and this friction and seeing where it takes you. Until next time, bye for now.